Welcome to the Be Unmessable with podcast. I am your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is Amy Edwards. She is a multi-talented force. She's a podcast host, a voice professional with more than 30 years experience in radio. She's a musician. She's an author. She's a Reiki master. She's the mother of two teenage girls, and she is the mind behind the Best You School and Fight for Her initiative. Overcoming personal challenges like divorces and depression, she has become dedicated to helping others achieve their most epic selves through habit, mindset, and honesty. And I am thrilled to have Amy as my guest today. Welcome, Amy Edwards.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. I'm just such a big fan of yours. Your episode is one of my favorites of all, I think. I just loved it so much. So this is my honor, really. And thank you for that intro.
Well, I feel like I should say the same exact thing you just said to you because it was so much fun and we got so much juicy stuff out of it, like really great strategies and tips. So if you haven't watched the episode of Amy's show that I'm on, you should do that after you watch this episode
Yeah.
that you're watching
Yeah,
right
maybe you can put a link.
now.
Put a link
Okay,
in the
or
show notes or something.
listening
Yeah.
to right now. So tell us. I will. I'll put a.
It's frozen.
That sometimes happens. Hold on. Let me.
It's okay. I know. I've used Riverside.
Yeah. I'm going to put it in low data. That means you won't see me, but we'll still be recording both of us.
Oh,
So
okay. All
I'll
right.
just say that again. I'll just say, okay, so that was a
Great.
brief introduction, but why don't you fill us in on some of the gaps? Like, how did you end up doing what you're doing? Tell us about your journey.
I mean, then you go, where do I start, right?
Yeah, right.
Because when you get into your 50s, then you're just like, my gosh, the story's long and I've lived 18 lives up till now. And so you go, how do I condense that? How do I make it clear? And I thought a lot about what I wanted to talk about on this podcast. And as big as my journey's been, there are some things that I've learned that I keep learning. And I wanted to say that so much of what we're doing here is a practice. And that's one of the things I've come to in my entire journey, right? Whether it's divorce and how you bounce back from that, whether it's finding out you're very reactive in some family situations or as a mother or whatever it is, it's finding those practices that you can return to and really honing those skills. And so that's a big part of what my whole journey has been about, even
I
just
love
today.
that. I love what
Oh,
you're saying because some people they think they can take a pill or do a course and all of a sudden magically they're just going to be, you know, unmessable with, not reactive, and that's a dream, that's a fantasy. So I love that you're likening it to a practice because it is. It's like a muscle, I call it, that you have to work out. If you stop working out the muscle, it gets atrophied.
it is so true. And I've had times that I've atrophied too. And
Me
I
too.
actually have a hat on my website that I created that says, there is no magic pill. And I wrote an album, a double album in 2018. I put it out and it was called Magic. And the cover of it is a pill that's open because, we're always searching for these magic pill one and done type things. And that's just not how it goes. And so when you're striving for more, I've discovered when you're working to become your best self, when you're asking these questions like, what will make me more unmessable with? What will expand me? You are going to get answers in ways that you don't expect. And that is probably the crux of like my life. You look back and you go, oh, that hard thing that I did taught me exactly what I needed to learn, what I wanted to learn, what I was desiring. And that is so incredibly fascinating to me because it always appears in ways that we never thought it would look. I'm sure you can relate to that because
Yes, for sure.
you told a great story on my podcast about your father-in-law. And,
Yeah.
you probably, I'm going to take a guess here before I start talking about myself, but you probably had moments where you thought, gosh, how can I serve my clients better? How can I learn even more deeply how to become unmessable with, And then the universe is like, oh, here's an opportunity. And we get presented with these things. And then we go, oh my God, what's happening? Why is my life falling apart? What is going on? This is so hard. And then you get a little further down the road and you go, oh my gosh, you have enough perspective to see that's exactly what I needed to learn.
I think some of the things during the thing happening that seemed like the worst thing in the world happening to me were my best lessons looking backwards. I mean, I remember when my brother died, and that was a long time ago. It was like in 1990, and it was horrible. It was like the worst
Oh,
time of my life. But looking back, I learned so much about life and not having a someday, and really loving the people who are in your life while they're here and living fully. And I never would have learned that, I don't think, in that way had it not been for his passing.
it is so true. It is so true. We learn so much, and it's just kind of mind blowing. So the thing I was thinking about, well, if we want to touch on my journey and how I got here, I started in
Definitely.
radio. I started in radio, and I didn't know why I loved radio. I just liked it, and I was the youngest in my family, and I think that I was just cute. I had curly hair, and I didn't really feel like I was heard a lot. This is hindsight
That's
looking
yeah,
back.
I know. That's interesting. But Amy, I got to
Yeah,
say, for those of you that are listening, you might see some artwork for the show, but those of you watching this video, Amy's gorgeous. I mean, there's
oh my
no
god,
like
thanks.
question about that. And there used to be a saying when I was a pop singer and we would do all the radio shows, that you have a face for radio, meaning you're not so
Right.
good looking. You do not have a face for radio. So,
Thank you.
yes.
I've heard that term for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I loved it, right? I've just
Yeah.
always been into it. And so I think that there was some longing to maybe not be seen and be heard.
Mm.
And wow, I didn't really make that connection to right now. But I think that that was in there. And so I pursued radio, but at the same time in college, I discovered philosophy. I studied philosophy and religion, and really was all about these expansive thoughts. And I never dreamed how those two might fit together. And over the course of years, I did a lot of different things. I had a clothing store at one point, which is another expression of your voice, right? Expressing yourself through style.
Yes,
And
creativity.
yes, and creativity. And then I had children. I ended up leaving two marriages and getting divorced twice, and realizing that I wasn't speaking up in those marriages and using my voice. And as I got older and progressed, I started to see this common thread of voice. And
Yes.
in my late 30s, then I was asked by some friends to learn instruments. I live in Austin, Texas, which is the live music capital of the world. So music is everywhere here. And I had done choir in high school, but that was about it. And they said, let's learn instruments. And we were all like moms and, had lives and all that. But we did. We got together once a week and we started learning instruments. And one thing led to another. And before long, we were performing. We were a cover band, and I was playing guitar in the band. We had settled into roles and singing some. And it was very difficult for me, but it really pushed me out of my comfort zone in a way that I never dreamed would happen. And as we progressed, we tried to become an original band, and that was when the wheels came off. That's a whole nother story. But I ended up by myself on my own, which you've been in a band. I'm sure you've
Yes.
got stories.
Oh
Everybody,
boy, that's a
yes,
whole
yeah.
other episode. The girl
It
band
is.
episode. Yes, that's a different world. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was on my own. So I thought, well, you know what? I've been doing this for 3 years. I might as well keep pushing myself. So I started writing music. I recorded albums. I recorded 5 albums in my early 40s and released them, playing guitar and singing. I was an independent rock and roll artist. And it, again, I'm using my voice, right? In a way that really pushed me. And I started to get as honest as I could in my songwriting. I realized how important that was to me, to be as authentic and vulnerable in those spaces as I could. And so here I am, kind of in my late 40s then, not now, then. And I realized that this was a common thread throughout my whole life. My voice,
Yeah.
speaking up. I started podcasting, and then the intersection of that philosophy and spirituality and the radio aspect all started to fit together, and puzzle pieces of my life started to make sense that never did before. And that was so exciting to me. And around that time, I left my second marriage, which was really difficult, but it wasn't where I needed to be anymore. And I knew that I wasn't using my voice to my fullest, meaning I wasn't in a situation that was serving me as well as I needed it to. And to love myself more, I had to leave. And as I progressed through the divorce proceedings, it was really tough year. It was contentious, and he didn't take it well.
Mm.
And now we get along great, but it took work. And during that year in 2018, I suddenly woke up one day and I had lost my voice. And I was about to release the Magic albums, and I couldn't sing. I couldn't really talk very well, and I was hoarse. Something was wrong with my sinuses. That was in July. I went through rounds and rounds of antibiotics. I was trying to get well, and I couldn't get well. And things got worse in the divorce, and I realized that I was not speaking up for myself, and I had to learn to do that. And it was such a surprise in my late 40s that still here I was, people pleasing and trying to manage situations. And as a result, I lost my voice, and I realized just how important it is to me.
Well,
So,
the universe, it's interesting because you spent all those years to be heard, whether it was from singing or on the radio or your writing. And it's like at some point, the universe ontologically will impact your body. Those kind of ontological being decisions impact your bodily functions, and symptoms can end up emerging from things that are not complete ontologically. So I think it makes complete sense. It's sort of like, okay, this is it. It's
yeah.
like you're hitting bottom kind of thing.
Oh, 100%. I became depressed because I was like, I can't believe that, this one thing that means so much to me. And I had a radio job. Actually, no, I didn't end up having a radio job till early 2019. So I didn't have a radio job right then, but I was still doing my podcast. And it was such a challenging time. But once I realized, oh, this is what I've got to do. That was the step forward. I thought, this is what matters so much to me. And I've got to learn how to truly speak my truth, to truly step into who I am, to not be afraid that people won't like it, or they're gonna have their own, mess withable reactive moments. Like, you just drop those worries and step into who you truly are. And a lot of times it does come with age, and that is perfectly okay. It happened for me when it was supposed to. For some people, I'm sure it's earlier, some later. For me, it was my late 40s. And it took me, well, I ended up having to have a surgical procedure then that December for my sinuses and for my voice. And it still took another 3 months for it to heal. But it was stepping in the right direction. I started uh, I got invited to do some different things, like some psychedelic work. And I just said yes, because I thought, you know what, I need to expand in some way. So I'm going to say yes to some things. And so I said yes to that. I said yes to healing. I said yes to better habits that served me. I said yes to taking the high road and finding a way to speak my truth in those divorce proceedings,
Hmm.
which was challenging in its own way. How do you navigate those? And I did. I'm very proud to say that I didn't say anything that I regret, but at the same time, I was able to learn how to stand stronger on my own 2 feet and to stand up for what was right in situations. And so 2019, things started to heal. I got another job in radio, which I was so excited about. And I had my podcast, just things started to come together the more I tapped into that voice. So that's a big part of how I got here and my journey. And like you said, it's not a linear path. Like I said too, it's a practice. And so I'm still evolving and learning all the time, even just, today and in the last year. And that's been that's been just more learning. So,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
just are able to look back and go, oh yeah, okay, this is part of it too. Like your brother's death. It's like, oh, this is part of that learning. But when we're deep in it, it can feel so dark that it's hard to see the light enough to step back and gain that perspective.
and I think that's one of the things that you're saying that I can so relate to is, my brother's death was however many years ago, 30 something years ago. But anytime I've been in a situation that just seemed like dark, I
Yeah.
was divorced before. I'm with my husband now 30 years, but my practice husband, I was not with for 30 years. And, business situations that happen that seem like, oh my God, so how tragic, or my mother having a stroke, or any of those kind of situations. If when you're in it, you can see that light, you can say, okay, something is going to come out of this. Something's going to come out of this that's going to make me stronger, that's going to make me smarter, that's going to make me a bigger impact on people, be able to make a bigger difference. Then that kind of can keep you from going down for the count. Because I can hear in what you're sharing, like all of us, there are things that happen that really are challenging and could send you down for the count, could send you out of the game. But what's a situation that you dealt with that it was so difficult that it really looked like it was over, but you transcended it and you emerged what I would call unmessable with, even though it was so challenging?
It's so wild because I thought I was through that. I thought I'd done enough self work and like I was really unmessable with. And then last year, Justin and I both decided we were working toward a lot of growth and totally in work mode. We I really desired hiring a virtual assistant or an executive assistant and wanted to learn more about that. And I thought we're moving in that direction. I created a couple of courses in my school. And, contrary to popular belief, you don't become a millionaire overnight when you launch your courses. So
No, that is true.
you don't. I mean, everybody says you do, but so I did not become a millionaire overnight. And so I was jolted because I thought, oh gosh, these courses, that's it, right? I'm going to be doing this and my podcast, because the radio gig that I mentioned earlier that I loved so much, they shut down the audio department for the newspaper here in town, the Austin American Statesman. So we didn't have an audio department anymore. So that was no more. So that was when I said, what am I going to do now? So I created the courses and I was working and all this stuff, and it just wasn't gaining the traction
Hmm.
and supporting me financially that I thought was going to happen. And Justin was working too on his speaking career and things, and it was just moving so slowly. And I
And for
thought,
those people watching and listening, Justin is Amy's fiance. You're not
yes,
married
sorry.
yet, right?
Right. We are
Okay.
engaged, been together 3.5 years, and his name is Justin Wren. Yes. And so he's working on his speaking career. So we're working really hard, but things just were moving really slowly.
Yeah.
And so I really thought, what am I going to do? I've got my daughter's about to go to college. I've got to have more income. And I ended up, a friend of mine, I do freelance voice work and commercial work. And my friend who runs the marketing company for that called me and we were just chatting about some upcoming voice work. And he said, if you know anybody, I'm looking for an EA or a virtual assistant. And I said, you know what? I need work right now. And he said, oh, well, awesome. You're hired. Because we've known each other. We've worked in radio together for like years and years. And I said, great. Okay. And so I started working for him. And I do not have the gift of administrative work, Josselyne. It's not my gift. There are people who have it. I know
They do. Yes, there
they
are.
do. And it is not me, unfortunately. So as I did this with him, I'm also a total Virgo and perfectionist at heart. So I really take pride in what I do. I'm detail oriented and all those things, but I really didn't enjoy it. And he wanted somebody full time. And so I was helping him set up his systems so he could hire someone. And then he wanted me to do the hiring. Well, I just became completely depressed. I thought, this is it. I guess I'm an EA, and this is my life now. And I just spiraled into a dark place.
Mm,
And because I wasn't happy, I wasn't like, didn't feel like I was fulfilling my purpose. And it was hard work for me because it wasn't something I really enjoy. And even though I liked him, and I was pretty good at it, it just wasn't filling my soul. And I became depressed. Like, it wasn't my ikigai, it wasn't my purpose, it wasn't my thing.
yeah.
And it got really dark for a while, and I kept doing it. And then about a month and a half in, Justin started to worry about me too, because I was just, it was really, really dark. And
Yeah.
and this was just last year. And then Ray said, do you want to stay on and be full time? And I was like, absolutely not. And he said,
Well, at least you
he's
knew enough to say
yeah,
that.
I did. I said, but I'll help you hire someone. So as I helped him hire someone, I suddenly realized that I have learned everything I need to train an EA. For us to hire someone, for us to get the help we need as we grow and move forward, suddenly I've done it all. I've learned it all. And I just had this flash like, oh my God. It was just surprised me. I was like, now this makes sense. I've been doing this for a reason. This was a
Mm,
gift. And
that's so
I
great.
was stunned. And like, we can't see it sometimes when we're in those moments. And I did not see it. And now in hindsight, I'm like, how could I not see that? And I didn't, but now I do. It was such a
Mhm.
gift. I brought in more income. I still have a great relationship with Ray that I was working for. I ended up hiring someone. And the reason I said administrative gift is because the woman that I ended up hiring, she's so happy. He's so happy. It worked out great. And she told me in her interview, she said, I have a gift for administrative work. And I thought, wow,
You're the
that
one.
exists. That's awesome. And I was like, this is it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this was exactly what I needed, because this was something I was desiring. And I was asking questions like, oh gosh, I would love to learn more about this. And I read a book and I watched videos and listened to podcasts, but oh my gosh, nothing like boots on the ground for me to learn
Yep.
it.
Build the
And
ship while you're sailing it, I say.
yes. And I thought, why can't I be quicker to gain that perspective when I'm in it? So, it's just that practice. We have to learn it sometimes and be reminded, oh, yeah, I can shift my perspective. I can step back a little bit. This is going to serve me in some way. Maybe I don't know how yet. Or maybe it's clear, maybe you have a flash. Sometimes it's just a little flash and your intuition's like, huh, maybe I'm getting this for a reason. And maybe it's because I was wanting to hire an EA, and like, then things open up, just maybe a little peak of light, right? And so what are we learning in those moments, and how can we take care of ourselves enough to, when those dark moments arise, we're able to tap back into that quicker, just like the unmessable with thing.
Well, I think, a lot of it has to do with surrounding ourselves with people who can be, 10,000 feet up from the situation and be able to point us in the direction of the light, like Justin is for you. I know my husband is for me. When I'm dealing with something that seems challenging, he'll sort of give me a different perspective of it that gets me out of the soup of it for a moment. So I think
Sure.
a lot of it has to do with either having a committed listener or a coach that can, and I'm all about coaching, obviously, because I am a coach, but I also have three coaches. Because when I can't see something, and I can't see everything, and I can't see what I can't see, and you can't see what you can't see. That's why there are blind spots,
Yeah.
but someone else can.
Agreed. And sometimes you can be that someone else for yourself.
Yes.
I would tell everybody, if they haven't done this, write on your notes app these things that happen that you then gain perspective on, whatever it is. And keeping track of some of those things, even if you don't look at it, every week, every day, that can be what you need sometimes to just give you that reminder that, oh yeah, these things are bigger than this myopic view that I have right now. These things are expanding me in ways that maybe I can't yet see. And I like to give myself some reminders like that a lot of times, and I use my notes app for it. That's a big one for me, to just keep a list. And another list is gains that you've had too, right?
Mhm.
Wins, anything that you have achieved. And for me, some of those look like, creating albums that I'm very proud of, that were very honest. They look like writing things that I'm proud of, putting out a podcast that, like the one with you, that I am so proud of, that I think really serves the world. So when you list those wins, then you can start to gain some momentum there too, and just use those to shift your mindset when you feel like you're in that dark place and need to bounce back and you don't remember how.
Yeah, no, it's true, because when you're in it, you're in it, and,
Yeah.
when you're in the soup, you are the soup, so it's you can't stir the soup if you are the soup. So tell us a little
Right.
bit about your foundation, because that's how we met. When we met in Las
Yes,
Vegas, it was you were launching your foundation, which is so exciting, so tell people about this.
I will. And I want to tell like how it came about too.
Yeah.
And it is called Fight for Her. And it is a nonprofit initiative with Fight for the Forgotten. Fight for the Forgotten is a nonprofit that helps the Pygmy tribes in Africa, mainly in Eastern Africa. And it was founded by my partner and fiance, Justin Wren, who was a former UFC MMA fighter. And
And the
he had a
sweetest guy in the world.
yes, he really truly is. And I'm pretty sure he was a pygmy in a past life, because he had a vision to help people. And I think he came back as sort of this Nordic Viking, and he traveled there and has helped them for 13 years and worked through Fight for the Forgotten with his team in Uganda and in the Congo. And that's primarily where Fight for the Forgotten serves. And I got to travel there last year and meet the Batwa Pygmy tribe and see the progress that they have had through their partnership with Fight for the Forgotten. Now they own over 60 acres of land that is theirs, that Fight for the Forgotten helped buy for them and help them obtain. They have homes after they were displaced from their ancestral forest home and had nowhere to go. And they have been through anthropologists' findings, the most bullied people on the
Mm.
planet in history. And if you don't know, their average height is 4'6", and they are very nimble in the forest, and that's partly why they have been so small. And now, just through evolution and everything, they have been treated as less than human by other tribes, by people in the world. And so it's been a calling to help them, regain their dignity and lead the best lives possible and find out what they want and partner with them. And Justin started with clean water, and it has evolved into full, sustainable, whole community development. So it's very exciting, because right now we're working on building a hospital. And
Mhm.
after I got to travel there last year, I got to meet the women, and it had been a dream of mine to do something to help women around the world. And we tossed around this idea for quite a while, and the name Fight for Her came up, and I just loved it. And so when we met Lauren Lahav, who put together the Own Your Worth event on International Women's Day, which is where we met,
Yeah.
I met her in December at a Tony Robbins event, and Justin told her about Fight for Her, and I told her about Fight for Her, and she said, please start this. I would love for it to be a beneficiary nonprofit of my event coming up, and you could talk about it and launch it. And I said, yes, there's nothing like a deadline. So we interviewed the women. We talked to them about what they wanted. They wanted sustainable livelihoods, which meant opening their own businesses and sewing and doing hair. It meant helping pay for the girls' schooling, so financial aid for girls, and it meant women's health care, of
Mhm.
course, long term and short term. Longer term, it means a maternity ward and a maternity shelter nearby as we develop the hospital there. And then it also meant short term initiatives that will have people coming to the village to help with women's health, because the nearest health center is an over 2 hour walk away. So down a very treacherous road. So it's really been exciting. But the part that I wanted to share was that this was a dream of mine for many years. And I had put it in an audio vision board kind of thing that I listened to, where I just fantasized about my dream life and a day in the dream life. And I mentioned this. I mentioned having a nonprofit that helps women around the world and donating millions of dollars to them. We're not there yet, but we will be. And
Hey,
donating
listen,
millions of dollars.
$1 at a time.
That's
Yes.
right. And donating millions of dollars to them to help them and transform their lives. And, you know, I put that in there before I met Justin, never ever understanding how I might create something like that. And so the moral of that story is, if you dream of something, we don't know how it's going to appear. Just like the
That's
things
right.
we were talking about, when you desire something, we don't know how it's going to appear or what lessons we're going to get taught along the way. And it's this full surrender and trust, and things appear in ways we never could have seen coming. And so that's how this appeared in my life. Even Lauren coming in and me saying yes to that was such a gift. And I took the risk. I said yes. We got it together. We showed up. We did it. And now I'm on to, like, what are our next steps? What does this look like to raise more money to help women that are really, we've already bought them sewing machines and we've already got them, space in the trading center. So it's really exciting, and manifesting that is just also very exciting and gives you this hope of, wow, what can I create when I let go of how I think the outcome should look.
Well, I love how you say that because, part of the whole Be Unmessable with methodology, as you know, is moving from reaction to creation. And when you're creating something like you're creating this nonprofit, you don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of you're just making stuff up and having conversations. And it's the most exhilarating time when you're in creation mode. Once you create something, and this could be a relationship or a business or a nonprofit or a project, once it's created, it sort of starts to slip over to management mode. Now you got to manage it and keep it, surviving and keep the machine going, which is a very different mode. And a lot of people lose that magic. And I love how you use
Mhm.
that word magic because, I'm all about abracadabra and magic.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
being able to keep in that creation mode keeps the magic going, and you don't know what you're doing. You're just creating, you're sharing, you're making requests. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I've raised a lot of money for charities, over the years, like almost
Oh,
$90 million or something like that. So, yeah,
wow.
yes. And so I know
Wow.
a lot about raising money now. It never makes it easier to raise the next $100 or $100,000 because it does involve making requests. You just have to ask people for money. And, I know, you and I can have a separate conversation about some of those things that really, worked. But I remember after 9/11, we decided to do a benefit for the kids who lost their parents downtown. And I just started talking about it. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't do is talk about their dreams. So, you had it in an audio vision board or you have it in your notes, but the most important and critical step is to share and share what you're dreaming to anybody, whether it's, my dream to move to Paris or your dream to start this organization or whatever dream, your new company that you're starting. And even
Yeah.
if it's to be in a relationship, start sharing what your vision is, because all sorts of resources will show up from the universe to help you make it happen, just like Lauren showed up in
A
your
big
life.
time, big time. I'm so glad you brought this up because that's a huge part of my messaging. Is I'm all about voice, and it is a tool that we can use to do all sorts of things. There's like some memes that go around that say, they'll say, or there's this advice, right? I'm putting that in quotes, advice that's like, be silent and work hard, and just like show them with the proof or something like that, this
Right.
concept of like, just keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and talk about your goals. And I'm like,
Yeah, I don't get those
no,
memes. I'm not on
no,
that algorithm.
no. Oh God, I know. I hate those. You'll probably see one now that we've talked about
Yeah,
it.
right now that you
And
said it.
and I'm like, nothing. That's a terrible idea. That is taking away this valuable creation tool that we have literally like on our lips, just right here. So how can you use your voice to serve you? Whether it's, imagining your dream day and listening to your own voice, and or it's speaking out your goals, because that just gives them so much more power. You learn to trust your own voice. And I know you're big on honesty and authenticity, and so am I. And so speaking truth, speaking positive speaking, affirmations. That's all so incredibly powerful. And so I'm so careful with my words. I'm careful with what I say. I believe that I know I'm always listening, but this has so much power. And how can I use this tool to truly serve the highest good of not only myself, but the world?
Well, I think you should get on as many podcasts as possible talking about the foundation and give people a place to go contribute, because everybody wants to make a difference and not everybody's going to start a foundation. Not everybody's going to do a fundraiser, but
That's
they can
right.
contribute to
Yes.
something that speaks to them, that touches their heart or inspires, who they really are underneath all the getting things done in life. So what can we put in the show notes for you so that people can find out more about how they can participate or donate, whether it's money
Yes.
or sewing machines or anything?
Yes, it's fightforher.net, but it's also on fightfortheforgotten.org. And so I can send you everything and
Good.
people
Yes.
can start contributing. We'll put it in the show notes and you can just click on the link and contribute. And I'm just so excited because you're right, and even if you do start something, a foundation or whatever, it's still so exciting to give in all different ways. I know that
Yes.
it is for me. And so that's one thing that has really surprised me too about turning 50 and moving into my 50s and pivoting to a bigger life of service. And that's the bigger story for me with this foundation is how can we constantly find ways to give back? And I feel like I've done so much self-work that I've built this foundation, laid this foundation of myself, that I'm able to come from a full place to give, to be of service. Because if you're not feeling full yourself, you can easily get very depleted when you're serving others and you're giving from a place of some depletion rather than fullness. And so that has been really exciting and it's felt very organic and very natural for me. And so I'm very excited to see what this develops into. And I would love for anyone to be a part of it and reach out to me and I can answer any questions. And it's very exciting to witness because the average life expectancy of the Bachwa people is 28 years old. So
Mm.
just imagine that for a moment and it puts it, like we were talking about perspective, it puts it very much into perspective that if someone you know, had died at 28, how much different would your life be? And so, anyway, it's a really incredible chance to give and make a difference in the world for sure.
It's just beautiful. And for those of you listening or
Thanks.
watching, if it even touched your heart for a moment, just click on the link and give what you can. It doesn't
Oh
have to
yeah.
be $1,000. It could be though,
No.
but it could be $10. It could be a
Yeah.
dollar, whatever. Every click, every contribution adds up. I mean, people don't realize. They think, what is my, little thing gonna? It makes a difference. It does.
It truly does. It truly does. Oh my gosh, because it doesn't take a whole lot to make a difference, like to buy supplies, for them to start businesses. They're starting businesses for the first time ever, ever.
It's
And I mean,
incredible.
they're very excited about it. The women that I know that I have met and that we have worked with. So that's just so it just makes me like really excited, to
That's great.
get to know that I'm a part of it and to just to see people like feeling good about themselves, to be, feeling purposeful is very exciting. So
Yeah, it really
mhm.
is. And one of the and I'll leave you this about fundraising. When you're
Yeah.
asking people for money, the biggest thing is to not ask them for money for a cause, but find out what they're committed to, what their vision is. And if your organization is a pathway to fulfill their vision, it's an investment. They're investing in their own vision.
I love
So
that.
it gives
Yes.
people an opportunity to invest in something that inspires them. And there's nothing better than that, to know
Yeah.
that, what you're doing makes a difference, whether it's, you buy somebody a cup of coffee, you see how much that makes a difference for somebody. You smile at somebody, it makes a difference for somebody. And if, $5 buys, 40 lunches for a homeless, you know, hungry child in New York City, which is true. $5 buys 40 meals.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That
$5 is
is,
somebody's latte. Like, don't have a latte today. Just,
wow.
give that $5. And so whatever you can leverage, because you can leverage money in nonprofits that you can't do in the for-profit world. So there's, a world that Amy can do with money that can impact exponentially what you and I would be able to do with the same amount of money. So it's exciting, very exciting.
Yes, very exciting. And that is a wild thing, $5. I mean,
Isn't that
right, your
crazy?
money goes a lot further. And, I've always deeply cared about women's issues. And so this really does do exactly that. Like, it's me giving to something that really calls to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
very
can
good.
relate.
Well, I'm sure there's people listening that it'll call to them too. So let's create the movement, the fight
Yes,
for her
please.
movement for
Hmm.
sure. And is there anything else you want to leave people with, or I'll put whatever you want in the show notes, obviously. So
I think that I just want to leave people with the hope that you can live your best life at any age. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about the practices that it takes, whether it's using your voice or developing habits in your life, doing the things that lead you to this fullness that can create so much overflow, that can create service, that can create abundance that necessarily isn't necessarily, it might be about money, but it might be about just love, joy, serving others. It might be about all different things. So you can develop that at absolutely any age. Your best days are still to come. Some of them haven't even happened yet. And I really just want to leave people with the hope that if you feel like you're not there yet, or you feel like maybe did it pass me by, or I'm in a dark place, there is hope, because you can keep moving forward and find your voice and become stronger every day. And the path is not linear. These are all just practices. So remember to ask those questions, ask better questions perhaps, shift that perspective and write yourself a list of all the things that ended up serving you when you thought that there was no way they could. Remember that it's all about learning and that everything is a practice.
I love it. I love it. And I'm so happy that you joined me. And I'm sure we'll do another episode on all the girl group stuff. That'll be a
Oh
whole other
my god.
conversation.
Oh my gosh.
But for
Yes, yes.
everybody listening or watching, if you learned something today, if you were inspired by something, please share this episode with anybody that you think this would make a difference with. Rate and review the episode. Let us know anything that you need from us, and we'll make sure to get it to you. And we'll see you on the next episode of Be Unmessable with the podcast. Thanks again, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Be Unmessable with the podcast. And I never take for granted that you've spent a little time with us today. And I want to make sure that you get value every time you do. So, in that spirit, I want to offer you my free Transcending Imposter Syndrome workbook. And this is, if anything around imposter syndrome messes with you, this is a way to disappear that whole thing so you can emerge unmessable with. I also look forward to hearing from you any feedback and any ideas for future episodes that would support you in your unmessable with journey. Thanks again, and see you next time.